We are back with another Moms Coaching Moms. I'm Rochelle, and this is Christine. And we are continuing our series on untangling the lies we believe as moms. And this week, we are asking, are you a bad mom? So I'm guessing I'm probably one of the very few that hasn't actually seen the movies Bad Moms, but we're rectifying that tomorrow or tonight. Tonight, we're going to watch that. Anyways, but I mean, I know the premise of it. So this week we were asking, are you a bad mom? And when we were talking, we came up with like this long list of things, and some were very much the same with both of us, and some are very different. One thing was the same as like, we both hate cooking. And I can't tell you the number of people, the comments that I get for myself. I'd be like, but you have 5 kids. I'm like, okay, I don't know what that has to do with it, but I still hate cooking. So bedtimes, organizations, school, whether it's public school or homeschool, and volunteering and bake sales and our weight, PTA meetings. The list goes on forever. If you have other ones, when you're listening in, put them down in the comments and stuff, because we'd love to hear them. But we are landing on one today that, as we got talking, we found so funny, because we took the same thing and the opposite was actually very true for both of us. Not opposite? I don't know if that makes sense. So I'm going to share this meme or this poster, which I'm sure most people have seen somewhere floating around the interspace of social media land. Good moms have sticky floors, messy kitchens, laundry piles, dirty ovens, and happy kids. So we want to break this down and untangle this lie. So you want to start with your story, because it's funny, because we end up on opposite, like we believe the same thing. We ended up on opposite ends. Basically what we did was, and this is what we started talking about last week, is when we make things good or bad. And when we make one thing good, then the opposite is bad. And so why don't you start with your story? And then, because to me, this is just so funny. We laugh every time we talk about this, because we came to the same conclusion, but opposite sides of it.
Yeah. So I grew up in a very small home and large family. And there was lots of stuff and lots of mess and lots of clutter and lots of chaos. And when I got my own place, it was like I went to the other end of the spectrum, and I was washing walls every week and baseboards and floors, and everything had to be really, really clean and neat and organized. And if it wasn't, it caused great amount of stress, and not even a little bit of stress. I'm talking like full on stress for me. Then I had kids, and oh my gosh, like I don't know how babies can cause so much chaos in a home, but they do. And it just became so much. And this idea that um in my own head, to be a good mom, I had to have this clean, neat, and organized house and attend to my child. I needed that for my own, I don't know, mental sanity. And it was literally driving a wedge between my husband and I. And as the kids got older, our home actually created its own sort of, I don't know, chaos, because, I got all sorts of comments like, well, you're causing us to like feel all this stress. And like the one that I heard all the time, we can never meet up to your standards. And I'm thinking, it's not that impossible, people. Like, if I can do it, you can do it. But I started to feel like that I was crazy, and that somehow then I became a bad mom because I wanted a clean house.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't understand why I couldn't be a good mom and have a clean house. And so then posters like that just solidified in me that somehow like I was really failing my family. And then what would also happen if I'd let the kitchen go is that my family's like, well, the kitchen's such a mess and I'm not able to make my toast. And I think, well, you're the one that didn't clean the dishes. So it sort of became this crazy cycle that I didn't understand why I couldn't have both until I learned we're judging things as good and bad. There isn't a good and bad. You can have a messy house and be a good mom. You can have a clean house and be a good mom. You can have a clean house and be a neglectful mom. You can have a dirty home and be a neglectful mom. It is not based on the things that we do, these expectations that we have on ourselves that determine what kind of mom we are. And the pressure, the absolute pressure that we put on ourselves as moms, and quite frankly, on each other. And it's one of the things I know I'm going to be watching Bad Moms with you because it is absolutely one of my most favorite movies of all time because they address just that. And sure, they make it out to be, super ridiculous, but, hello, it's Hollywood, and that's what is so great about it.
Yeah.
And I love that because we judge each other and we feel inferior to other moms. We feel like we can't measure up to other people when we have no idea what's going on behind closed doors of other people. And that's what is so interesting to me because I know when you and I talk about it, you came from the opposite, and yet here we are landing in the exact same space, which then proves my point that it's actually not about all of these rules that we put on ourselves, the kind of food that we make or don't make, the kind of home that we keep or don't keep, the kind of places that we go or don't go, right down. Like I've heard like people are like, wow, there's like red wine versus, white wine and how like, sophisticated moms drink this. Who cares?
Oh,
or like
I don't drink any wine, so I like the hard stuff.
I only drink red. But then I hear that people are like, you can't put ice cubes in red wine. Why? If you want to put ice cubes in it.
Yeah.
But again, it's that judgment. And it's this idea that there's good and bad in that when really it's okay to be different and to bring that, connection together. And that it isn't about being a good or a bad mom. And at the same time, this idea, it's almost exciting to think, ooh, I want to be a bad mom. That, you can kind of, I just think it's so important to break this down because when I see signs like that, I just think, oh, and it's like a dagger to my heart. I don't want sticky floors. I don't want a messy kitchen. I also want happy kids. So does that mean that I have to have sticky floors and a messy kitchen and piles of laundry so that my kids are happy? Or is it possible that I can have clean floors and a clean kitchen and happy kids? And I don't think that the state of our home determines whether our kids are happy or not.
No.
And I just believe in this topic so strongly that it's like we're wasting all this energy and time on the things that don't actually determine the relationship with our kids.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's more neglectful for them than if we
Right.
sort of did what worked for us and spent that time connecting with them as humans.
Well, because I know the first time that I ever saw that poster, I just like breathed a sigh of relief. Except the problem with that is then I was now making that a good thing. So I grew up in a home where there was my brother and I, that's it. My dad worked outside the home. My mom was home, and my brother and I went to public school. So we were gone all day. And I was a messy kid. My room was a mess all the time. It's actually a conversation I want to have with my mom at some point, how she ever lived like that with me, because she was very, very neat and tidy. Like our house was like spotless. And so for me, then when I got my own place though, like I did actually generally like keep a fairly neat home. Where things kind of changed and got challenging was when I started having kids. because I mean, most people probably know I have 5 kids. So we had 5 kids that were 8 and under, and the last were twins. So my home was like literally my upstairs living room was like those, those rubber square colorful mats. Like that was my upstairs living room, was all of it. It was like a playground almost, basically, but it was just like all the toys, there's extra saucers, there this and that, and all the kids stuff. Like it was just that. And I felt the exact sort of same but opposite of you, as in like, oh my goodness, my house is a mess all the time. And the other thing is, as our kids started getting older, we decided to homeschool. So I've homeschooled for how many years? About 17 years or so. So I had 5 kids at home all the time, like 24/7. There were 6 of us in the house 24/7. So, in my mind, it was like, but, and then there's comments that are made all the time. Well, like mess is really stressful, and like it's, and I get it. I'm not saying that like, mess is great and like all of that. However, for me, the opposite was true of what was for you. And I was kind of just stressed, like, because I was allowing, and now for me, this goes to a much deeper story as well. I was allowing other people to speak into my life and tell me how my life should be, which goes to a much deeper story in my life, which I'm working through. But I was allowing other people to tell me how my house should be and how my family should be and how it should work for me, instead of just going, okay, you know what? I have 5 kids in my house and myself 24/7. We're homeschooling. So that means we have tons of books and activities and stuff already. We had 2 babies. And I mean, our third one, she was 2 years old as well when the twins were born. So like really had like 3 kids, like really little. And we were involved in activities with the kids and stuff too. So like my house was just sort of perpetual this mess. So when I saw like that poster, I was just like, oh, thank goodness. Okay, now I'm good. Problem being is that I made a good or bad thing. But the thing is, I would look at other people like you, like people that could keep a clean house too. And I'd be like, oh my goodness, like I am such a bad mom. Like my kids must be so stressed because they're living in mess and they're living in chaos and they're like, oh goodness sakes. Like, and we get all worried about that instead of just like, okay, what do I need right now? What does my family need right now? Like for that space, I mean, my kids, they have great memories actually of the floor being covered, like, I mean, when I said playground, I didn't think of that. It was my kids. They're like, we got like a playground upstairs. Like, it's amazing. Like they'd put blankets on the floor and pretend it was like this big swimming pool. They actually dumped water all over the floor once trying to, see if that would actually work. We have hardwood floors, so that wasn't so great, but here I'm like so stressed thinking like, oh my goodness, I'm such a bad mom. Like, I didn't get all my dishes done. I can't keep up with this and this and this. And, and the reality is that I had 5 kids. We homeschooled. This was our life. And I think now and go like, I wonder if we would have all been able to enjoy it a little more, instead of just that judgment of like, oh my goodness, like, thinking about what other people had to say. No one else was living in my home. Like anyone that was making the comments wasn't living in my house, wasn't living as me every single day with my kids, homeschooling and all that. Just like no one else was living in your house with you, and I know we've talked about this and it was like, yeah, like instead of worrying about all of that, for you, okay, if I can just get this, if I can just have like the 10, 20 minutes, whatever it was, just to do a cleanup, then I could be fully present with my kids. For me, if I quit worrying about like, oh my goodness, look at this, look at this, look at this, like, oh, someone's going to come and say this. And I could have been more fully present with my kids in those moments then, instead of like thinking about what other people are going to say. Instead, like, what's working for me? What's working for my kids? What's best for my kids?
Yeah.
So this was so funny because it was like these opposites were so made good and bad in both of our worlds. And so the thing that, you know, we really wanted to break it down to and untangle was, this is not one of those things that needs to be made good or bad. You know, yes, I guess in the world there are things that definitely are good and bad. I get it. But I think we need to be able to take that time to go, okay, is this one of those? And what needs to be asked, like you had said before, what I've said already, is what works? What's going to work for your family? Now in my house, I actually have, like, you know, I keep joking and whatever, like I actually have like an adult living room. And we all kind of keep joking about it, going, "Oh, we got an adult living room now up here." But it's a different stage. It's a different stage of life. You know, as my kids got older, they were able to help more and do more stuff. And, you know, like that, instead of just that judgment, which is so harsh on ourselves. We can be so harsh on ourselves and on others.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know what's going on in someone else's home. We don't know what's going on in their life, even at that moment, and what they're dealing with. And so if we can just, like, I mean, I don't know, even just like stay in our own lanes. And if we have anything to say, just to offer that encouragement. That was something that came out of the other night when we were having our NJAM conversation, was like, why don't we just encourage each other more?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Well, and because, like, you know, I was thinking about that whole thing with the homeschooling. I did, you know, I had both. I had, you know, one in school and homeschooling a complex special needs child. And yeah, like there's just so much to unpack there, that if we took out the judgment, if we took out the pride and that idea that there has to be something good or bad or right or wrong in
Yeah.
it, and instead have a conversation of what works and what doesn't work for us, and to then really seek to listen and to accept that other people have different ways, and then understanding that we can go a lot more into connecting and being inclusive in that way, and that it really is okay to do what works for your family. And there's just so many different things. So all of that to say, join us for our
Yes.
conversation.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one this next Wednesday. So that will be November 10th. Yes,
November 10th.
we are going to be, for all moms, November 10th, we're going to be having this conversation. Are you a bad mom? And yeah, feel free to comment. Tell us some of your bad mom stories, and we'll just all celebrate together. You can have your wine. I'll have my rum or my vodka and my
yes.
And we'll just, like, you know, sit in our clean house and messy houses and just do what we
be.
So yes,
Awesome.
and all of the links for everything that we're doing and all of our pages, all our social media, everything is always attached to the videos. And so, yeah, I guess our question, are you a bad mom? I guess we kind of hope that you are a bad mom, because we're bad moms too, but we're all good moms too. So we need to change that word. We need to change it.
We're so good at being bad. We're so bad at being good.
That's a good one. Yeah, sure. That sounds good to me.
Awesome.
We have fun. We have fun anyways. So